Hey, good morning, y'all. It is Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom. I hope you are doing well. I wanted to actually take a moment today because I've been rewatching something and I think it's worth talking about because we've talked about the Orville, talked a little bit about Battlestar Galactica, and we'll visit that at some point. What I want to talk to you today, though, about is one of my favorite Star Trek series, and that's Star Trek Enterprise. And actually, what you'll see behind me is the intro for it, like the musical intro stuff. And it was titled for quite a while Enterprise, and that was it. I think it was the third season they started doing Star Trek Enterprise. They thought it would stand on its own without the Star Trek label, and I think they were almost afraid of it because Star Trek hadn't been doing very well for a little while. And unfortunately, that wasn't a wise decision because this is Star Trek, and this is Enterprise, and it's focusing on the first Enterprise, not the one of James T. Kirk's time frame, but actually one even before that. Now, I actually have the first two seasons on DVD, and actually I have the entire series on DVD, but it's like knockoff copies from across the way, and so they're not great. But now streaming services, I never bought the rest of these, and so it's one of those shows that just, it's amazing. We'll talk about that in a second. Side note, they have some of the coolest like special edition cases and stuff. It's got a little scratchy or something. No, but it came in these. They pull apart, which is really just neat, and this disc set fits right inside of here. And so each of those actually would come in the box thing of these, but they were not cheap back in the day. I bet now they either go for a pretty penny or nothing at all, depending on where you're at. But what I wanted to do is go through the highlights of the show, because Star Trek Enterprise, if you watch it today, first off, you can understand something. It is one of the best Star Trek shows in many ways. I think it's right up there with Deep Space Nine. I think it's better than it in many ways too, because it really has good characters and character development. I say that there are some characters that you just don't care about, and that's fine. But it really does, on the characters that they really want to focus on, they do it well. And it is a beautiful show. Yeah, one thing you need to know though too is when you watch this show, it's going to have a minor issue today that you're going to notice very, very heavily. The CGI in it from back in 2005 and earlier was not good compared to today. And so the CGI is very clear. And back then it was okay. But when they use the CGI on the ships, it looks really, really good. The ships look fantastic. Like Enterprise looks great. The other vessels that we see, the Andorians, the Vulcans, Tellarites, you name it, they look amazing. But the CGI where they input people, usually they try to do it from really far away so that way it looks like someone's there walking and whatnot, but it doesn't look good. You just have to keep that in mind. This is a show that was really heavily experimenting with CGI so that way they could do really cool shots and show you things. It's way better than the 90s. But it's still one of those things. It was early. They didn't have as much money for some of those effects, but they tried anyway. And so it doesn't look great. But at the same time, this show, the stories and the things that go through are amazing. And I think it actually has a funny benefit of getting canceled early. And I think that's actually, we may just do a video where we talk about this, that sometimes the best thing for a show is to be canceled early. And we'll talk specifically about Enterprise, but the reason being is just this, that sometimes when you get canceled early and you have at least some time to understand that it's going to be canceled, you have the ability to do things that you wouldn't. Because you already know we're done, we shouldn't, we're not going to touch this, because we probably have another 2-3 seasons in us. And then all of a sudden, it gets canceled and you go, well, they at least gave us one more season. That's what happened with Star Trek Enterprise. It got to 3 seasons, like the original series of Star Trek, and they found out they were going to be canceled, but they were given the green light for one more season, and that was it. And so they just took out all the stops, and they went nuts. And because of that, the 4th season of Enterprise, the 3rd and 4th season are bombastically good. So good. And season 1 and 2, they were trying to really rev up and get started. And oftentimes with Star Trek shows, they say that it takes a while for the show to get started, to get stuff going underneath it. And actually, I would say yes and no with Star Trek Enterprise. They thought they were going to be on longer, so they didn't go into a heavily deep thing. And I want to run through the seasons and what they look like and some highlights of season 1 and 2, because seasons 3, we'll talk about season 3 and 4 in just a moment. But seasons 3 and 4 are different. They're just different. And one of them's because they're canceled, and the other is because of their serialization, that they wanted to tell a big story, a huge one that actually had lots and lots of details. Now, another thing, side note, a lot of people didn't like the intro because it's actually got a song behind it, Faith of the Heart. And quite frankly, I actually really enjoy it because it's catchy, and every time I hear that song, what do I think of? I think of Star Trek Enterprise, and I want to go back and watch it. And that's actually, I saw it on Paramount Plus, and I had to go. I had to go watch it. It was worth every penny just to rewatch. Because Star Trek Enterprise, this is one of the prettiest, coolest intro like musical things that Star Trek has ever done, just because it shows the progress in the montage of humanity, like even NASA and some shots from there, landing on the moon, and then the progression that they use for CGI of the space station being built, the International Space Station and beyond, and then shuttles, and then bigger vessels, and then finally warp-capable ships. And they even use some footage from Zefram Cochrane from Star Trek First Contact, which is really smart. And so, what exactly is it, though? The first 2 seasons, most people say, are very slow, but quite frankly, I think the first 2 seasons are Star Trek. They're ideas, but they are moments where there's not a lot happening, but yet that's the beauty of it. They're the first Earth vessel out this far, and so they're learning and exploring and seeing things. And so they did take a slow burn on some of the bigger storyline things, and that's okay, because the individual episodes of the first season, first and second season, we should go through and talk a little bit about those, because I've got right here the disc special edition stuff, where it tells you go through. So first off, let's just run through these, all right? This is just some great stuff, okay? So first off, what we've got, Broken Bow. It's the 2-parter start of the series, okay? And so the Enterprise is finally called out and to try to deliver a Klingon back to its homeworld, which, side note, should probably have taken them, and that's one thing they didn't mention a whole lot, like how long it really should take, because it probably should have taken them months, because their max is warp 5, and at this point in the show, they say their max is warp 5. They don't go to warp 5 for quite a while, because as Commander Trip Tucker says, it's warp 5 on paper, but not in necessarily theory. And they eventually prove that yes, it is. But it's scary, because that's your upper limit, and that could tear everything apart. It's like the Enterprise D going past warp 9.7 kind of deals. And so those kind of things, it's really cool, because it sets the stage for there is an enemy faction that's trying to stop them, but they're not necessarily against Earth, but they have some sort of help from potentially the future, and they're out to stop anything that goes against their plans. And right now they want to mess with the Klingon Empire. And so it's really amazing. The Klingons look fantastic in this show. They are tried and true actual Klingons from the original series movies onward, okay? So just keep that in mind once they had the price for makeup. And season 4 of Enterprise does a great job of doing something that we needed to for the original series. Because just like Deep Space Nine did with Worf, them going back in time and being in one of the episodes of the original series, and Worf says, we just don't talk about it. And then Enterprise comes along and answers it. But it's a great one. The next episode we see is Fight or Flight, where there's something, they just see a ship that's wrecked, and the people are murdered inside of it. And so it's one of those things that it's a slow burn, but it's an interesting episode of what do you do whenever there's not a prime directive, whenever there's not necessarily guidance on how you're supposed to approach these things, because they're the first ship out doing these things. And then next we get on is Strange New World. They start seeing things and experiencing hallucinations, and it's a good episode. It is a little slow, but it's fun. Unexpected is the next one. And so we find a cloaked and damaged ship that is following behind them, messing up their warp trail. And Trip Tucker, Connor Trenier plays Trip Tucker in this, and he actually gets pregnant in the episode. And it's not like an awkward thing in like modern today politics stuff. It's actually a really funny thing with the alien race, and it is fantastic because it's amazing, because they eventually involve the Klingons, and when the Klingons hear about it, they lose their minds and laugh at them. And so then the next episode is Terra Nova, where they see a colony from Earth that had left years and years ago, like 50 plus, And so they were traveling at warp 1 or 2, maybe, right? That kind of thing to get to their destination. So they finally get to check on them and what happened. And it's a lot of fun. It's a slower episode too, but it's an important episode to set the stage. The Andorian Incident, they visit a temple. I'm not going to say a whole lot other than Jeffrey Combs is in this show. And he is fantastic as an Andorian. He plays Commander Shran, and he is such a good person in this role because the Andorians are cocky and arrogant and they know better than everyone, and the Vulcans are the same, but then they're also emotionless. And that's the other thing. The Vulcans in this show, they show emotion, but they don't. And it's this interesting blend because as you see later on, the show really hits this thing of let's get down into the nitty gritty of why the Vulcans are like this and why they're different in the original series. So now I'm going to go a little bit faster and just go through some of the better ones that really are good. Civilization, they have first contact with a civilization that's pre-warp because they discover someone else is on the planet, and they don't know what to do exactly with the first contacted exactly, and should they tell them, should they not? And so they have a great side thing with that, and also dealing with these other aliens. So we've also got Fortunate Son, Freighter Crew, Nostran Attack. That one's okay. Cold Front. Yeah, this is where we finally meet Daniels. This is a lot of fun because they have to chill in a plasma storm. No, that's not it yet. Cold Front is just there's something that happens and the Suliban are shown again. It's kind of weird stuff. So then next we get Silent Enemy, and this one is super creepy because it just keeps showing up and attacking them, and they have to rebuild, install their weapons. Dear Doctor. Now this is a really awesome episode for the concepts of what should we do when we have the cure for something, but this could change the entire course of a planet, because this planet has 2 species on it that are sentient and one is lesser, and the one that is well developed, they need the cure. So what do you do with that? So really crazy stuff. Sleeping Dogs, they see a Klingon ship down in a gas giant. That's a lot of fun. Shadows of Pajam, we see again Andorians and Vulcans, and that's an ongoing theme throughout the show of their battle and their conflict with one another because they don't trust each other at all. And Shuttle Pod 1, this actually I really enjoy because it's Trip and Reed just completely in a shuttle. It's a very small episode, but yet it's great to see them trying to survive because they think their Enterprise is gone and they're gonna die out on their own. And so yeah, this is a good one. Fusion shows Vulcans with emotions, and they do it in a very great, awesome way, and it's fantastic, and it deals with some really serious stuff that T'Pol gets attacked. And so we also have Acquisition we get to see some Ferengi, really a lot of fun there. Oh, Oasis is very creepy. I like that one a lot. I recommend that one. I'm not going to say anything else about it. So Detained is really fun because then it's you get to see Jonathan Archer's concepts challenged on what he believes about the Suliban. That they're not all just bad. There are some that are actually just trying to survive and live. And I think that's an important note because sometimes when we encounter a culture and our first interaction is negative, we think that entire culture is negative, when in fact it could just be the people we've interacted with. So this is an important thing. Vox Sola, just watch that one. It's a lot of fun. Fallen Hero. Again, they have a great actress for this, but there are times where the actress does smile as a Vulcan a little bit, and it's kind of weird. But hey, it's way better than some of the new Star Trek stuff with Vulcans. So anyway, Desert Crossing has a weird desert planet, and they almost get involved in a war. Lastly here, 2 Days and 2 Nights. They get to take shore leave. It's such a simple episode, and actually it's just a fun, goofy episode in a good way. Now, Shockwave, it's a 2-parter that starts up in season 2, where the Enterprise is blamed for destroying an entire world, of people, like killing thousands of people. It's a small mining thing, so it's not like a ton, but it's still, you kill thousands of people, you're going to get recalled. And it's a really good mystery and fascinating thing. So Shockwave Part 2 is the start of Season 2. Carbon Creek. I both love this episode and I hate it because it's a very boring episode, but it's a really cool episode because it shifts how Vulcans and humans actually have interacted first. And so it's really cool. Minefield, like honestly, Season 2 I think ramped up a bit on their concepts here, and they had some really good episodes. Minefield is we actually get to see some interactions with the Romulans, and they do a very good job of never having humanity directly interact with Romulans face to face. Really good. So Dead Stop, this is them having to repair their ship. It's super creepy. I highly recommend it. Night in Sick Bay, one of my favorite episodes, because any episode that focuses in on Phlox, their doctor, fantastic. And Phlox and Archer are the focus here, but it's a night in his sick bay, and Phlox is an alien doctor, and that's the best part about him. The actor plays him so well, and he is an alien doctor. He has medicine that humanity won't think about. And so when you see Dr. McCoy, he uses modern medical technology, and Phlox is over here going, yeah, I believe in modern medical technology, and also here's a Regulan bloodworm to clean your system. You know, that's a cool thing. Like he's using other like natural cures that work just as good, if not more so, that doesn't require developing an entire thing of technology for. It's really cool. So, the 7th, we're not going to talk about that. Communicator. Reed accidentally leaves a communicator on a pre-warp civilization, and it's a really, really good episode, again, of, well, we messed up. How do we fix this? And the answer is sometimes you don't. And so how important it is to have some sort of laws in your books about what you do in situations. Singularity. They find their daily tasks turning to obsessions. They go crazy. It's an okay episode. Vanishing Point, and Hoshi takes her first trip in a transporter, and this is like one of those episodes that was on the edge of greatness and then became an absolute dud. Terrible. So, Precious Cargo. They find a beautiful female princess in stasis, and Trip falls in love and does Trip things. It's okay. It's okay. Catwalk. This is again one of my favorites. They are stuck in the warp nacelles of the ship because of a storm. Otherwise they die. And it is really, really awesome. It's good stuff. So, Dawn, Trip works together with an alien to survive, and it's a good episode. It's a lot of fun. It reminds me a lot of Jean-Luc Picard and the Darmok and Jalada Tanagar. Oh my goodness. Nope, it's gone. But that episode where he deals with the people that they can't communicate with. Now, Stigma. Paula is diagnosed with Panar syndrome, which is not good in Vulcan society. I'm not going to explain exactly what that is, but it comes all to a head when the Vulcans find out. It's a lot of fun just because it's really more the intrigue of societies interacting. I think that's the thing I enjoy about it most, because the politics can be just as good. That's like why Babylon 5 is so good. It's the politics behind the scenes that really make things interesting. And this is important with that too. And so ceasefire, Archer is called upon to negotiate a ceasefire and some sort of deal in between the Andorians and Vulcans. And again, anytime that they focus in between on those interactions, I love it because Shran is awesome, Andorians are awesome, especially the older Andorian style, especially this Andorian style. You don't need to put the makeup so heavily that they've got these like skull ridges things going on. It's silly. Now, future tense, they find a ship from the future that's insane, and they keep getting attacked over having it. Really, really, really good. Kanamar. This one's really good. It's a prison break escape kind of episode. The Crossing counters a large otherworldly vessel. They keep getting bodies snatched and switched out, and it's really crazy weird, and the mystery of it is a lot of fun. Judgment. Archer's captured by the Klingons, and they sentence him to life in prison, and it's really interesting to see exactly how their justice system works. Horizon. Anytime any episode focuses on Travis Mayweather, he's kind of a boring character. Same with Reed. They're not that good. So, The Breach, they try to rescue some Denobulans underground. It's okay. Denobulans are fun, but the rest of the episode's kind of boring. Co-Genitor. This is another episode where actually I'm not a fan of Trip in this episode because he just gets involved in other people's societies without understanding things and makes everything worse. But it's actually a really interesting question of What do you do? Would you impose your society's expectations and morals? Should you? It's tough. It's interesting. Regeneration. This is both one of the best and worst episodes in Star Trek Enterprise because it shows us the Borg. And it makes sense why they're there once you understand Star Trek, but it's just dangerous because you got to be really careful, and that's why they never identify themselves as the Borg. And it's a fun episode. I love it. Like, it is so cool. I remember being a kid seeing the advertisement for this at my friend's house, and we sat down and watched it on DVR. Now, First Flight, this is a really cool backstory thing with T'Pol and Archer, although there's a moment where they keep showing the same scene over and over again of them walking up to the front of the shuttle to look. And it just goes back through the NX program, which is fun to see. Now, the last little episodes here, Bounty, Archer's captured by a Tellurite who's going to try and sell him to the Klingons after his escape. And it's neat to see Tellurites, because Tellurites, they're the most ugly, awesome, crazy, weird stuff, because the original series dealt with them, and they were terrible looking because the costumes were not good, but they did what they could. And now they look fantastic. Like, they look terrible, you know what I mean? Like, the costume is great, but they look like literally a pig race. It's fascinating. And then the Expanse. So this is where things get to a head, and we end season 2, is Earth is attacked, and then things unfold into season 3, because it's not the end of it. Apparently, actually, the people that attacked Earth are building a bigger weapon that's going to destroy the entire planet. And so season 3 goes around, and season 3 is an entire big series, other than a couple episodes, where they tell this big story of trying to meet this race that is sold on the idea that Earth needs to be destroyed, and they're going to go kill them with a big super weapon. And so Enterprise is there, and they have to go through some of the hardest decisions, and you watch the Enterprise get beat up and almost destroyed over and over again. And I think that's really cool. I love that, because Voyager should have had that, because they were off by themselves. And the same here with Enterprise, that they're off by themselves. They don't have resources. They don't have places to refuel and rearm. And you watch that as the ship just looks like crap because it's destroyed, and it's so good because of that. It's a really good season. Honestly, I didn't like it when I first watched it, but getting to watch it now on streaming services where you can binge the whole thing pretty quickly in a few days, it's a really awesome season because it has a really great story, and this alien race is fascinating because I won't say much to spoil it, but I highly recommend it. Season 4, though, this is where things get interesting because they knew that they were going to be canceled. They'd gotten that word. And so season 4, they went, okay, let's pull out all the stops. Let's answer all the questions. Why did the Klingons have ridges here but not in the original series? What happened to the USS Defiant from the original series that the disappeared in some weird thing with the Tholians or something, right? In a nebula or something like that. Yeah, it was I can't really remember, but it was like disappearing out of phase. And so what happened to that? What if there were more augments like Khan, Noonien, and Singh, right? Well, what would we do? And why are these Vulcans different than in the original series? Let's answer that. This is the stuff that makes everything just hum. It starts off with kind of a weird thing where they go back in time, and it's a obligatory World War II kind of episode because it seems like Star Trek likes to do that kind of stuff, which is fine. It's all a lot of fun. But then they have these 2 or 3 episode series chains where they just go nuts, and they just want to tell these stories to answer why Klingons in the original series don't have ridges. And it's a great explanation. It's so much fun, and it's weird and nutty and crazy and awesome. And they have all these episodes. Like season 4 is amazing. It is so much fun, and you get to see Brent Spiner in it too, playing this predecessor to Noonien Soong, who builds Data. And it makes a lot of sense, and it's funny just seeing Brent Spiner, though, as apparently they've just cloned themselves because they just keep being the same person. It's kind of fun. And so season 4 also, though, has one of the best 2-parter episodes I've ever seen ever. I believe it's In a Mirror Darkly. Maybe. And it's the 2-part episodes of the Mirror Universe, where we get to see what happened to the USS Defiant from the original series, and we get to see the Enterprise crew in a Mirror Universe go aboard and wearing the clothing of the original series, and they don't change it like the new stuff does. They revel in it, and it's beautiful. Take the things that were there and love on them and show them, and it's amazing. And so They do such a good job. I will say the end of Star Trek Enterprise, it has the worst series finale personally I've ever seen. It could have been a really good episode, but it focuses in on a different crew than the Enterprise crew and not from that era. And so they essentially take the focus off of them into a more popular Star Trek series, which is unfortunate. So if it was just an episode, it would have been really cool to some extent, but there were some things that happened in there as well that just didn't need to. We also get to see Section 31 a little bit in this show, and just I love it, especially once you watch Deep Space Nine. You know that Section 31 is creepy, and in a good way. Like it's fun because you never know what they're gonna do. So I highly recommend Star Trek Enterprise. It is the Star Trek if you want to go back to the old school stuff and really get you in the door. Now I do have to warn you that unfortunately it was in that era of skin is better. So there's moments where it does get a little inappropriate. So keep that in mind. And oh yeah, we get an episode about the Orions and how crazy weird their society is. But yeah, I highly recommend Star Trek Enterprise. And if you've seen Star Trek, what is your number one Star Trek show and why? And let me know if you've watched Enterprise and what is your favorite episode. So I've been Cody, the Keeper's Nerd. I hope you're having a great week, and I will talk to you later. Bye.